Hey guys, welcome to my channel. So today I have these oil paint artists paint sticks right here in front of me. So these are literally oil paint in a stick. I saw these in the art store and I was like, okay, I have to try these right now. And then I bought them and sat on them for quite some time so I could try them on camera for you guys. And that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna review and try these. Just a quick heads up, this video was actually filmed with live talking. I was gonna show you my live reaction and real-time, first time feedback. But unfortunately, I did have some issues with the audio. So if my voice and my hand gestures don't quite line up, that would be why. But I'm gonna try to remember everything that I talked about during the process of creating this and recap some of it here. Before we jump into the actual review, I do just want to say a quick thank you to the sponsor of this video. The sponsor of this video is Skillshare. Thank you, Skillshare, so much for sponsoring this video and for supporting my channel. As you guys know, I've worked with Skillshare quite a few times in the past, and that is because I truly enjoy their product. I've used it myself personally many times in the past, including before they sponsored me, and I'm a big fan of their website, which, by the way, if you don't know, is an online learning platform. And it has thousands of classes and it covers a bunch of skills, artistic, creative skills, as well as entrepreneurial skills. And you do get unlimited access with the premium membership, and it is pretty affordable as well. If you do the year-long subscription, it's like $10 a month. There's a bunch of great classes. In the fine arts section, there are classes across a variety of subjects: watercolor, gouache, ink. There's even a class on how to talk about art for beginners, which I think is really cool. So if Skillshare sounds like something you think you would be interested in, then make sure you click the link down in the description box, and they're going to give you 2 free months so you can go spend a couple of months learning about oil paint. So thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it, and let's move on with the review. Okay, so let's talk about these paint sticks. There are 6 colors in my pack, which is the traditional colors pack, and it's a dusty rose color, a Wedgwood blue color, a light gray, a yellow ochre, a green color, and a red earth color. So that's kind of all the colors that come with this, and they are supposed to be non-toxic, fade-proof, all of that good stuff. And if you turn over on the back, it has a lot more information about it. So the tagline is solid paint in stick form, professional oil colors, and just a quick overview of some of the claims on the back. It says that unlike conventional colors, it usually dries in 24 hours to a flexible film. The colors are completely compatible and can be blended with any oil paints. And you can see I just had some of my other oil paints on the screen. I'm going to be using white and dark brown to mix in with this so that I can test that claim, and so I can add a bit more contrast because there's not that much in the colors that I got. It says that these are made of specially selected quality pigments mixed with special drying oils solidified into a highly refined wax. So there is no mess and no running color. You have oil colors in a solid, easy to control stick form that can be spread or blended with the finger, brush, or palette knife. It also says that because they have a special shape and buttery consistency, they are in many ways easier to use than a brush. They're self-sealing. You're supposed to just peel off this film before using, and it will reform on the stick in a couple hours, so they never dry out. And they're not supposed to be any unpleasant odors or fumes, so you can paint virtually anywhere at any time. They're supposed to be intermixable and blendable to achieve any shade that we desire, and it's supposed to be easily clean up with Signaturp or rectified turpentine. And then it has some ideas. So this is what everything looks like out of the package. They're these big chunky crayons. And these are the supplies that I'm going to be using for this. As you can see, I am going to be mixing in my burnt umber and my white. And the reason for that, again, is that the colors in this are beautiful, but they don't have that much contrast to them. Okay, so I have this little canvas board out here in front of me. I have all of my paint sticks. So the first thing I tried to do was kind of see how they worked without taking the film off. And as you can see, they weren't very pigmented without taking the film off, which makes sense. Then I poured and got my Goblin ready to mix with and started out just playing. So I hadn't quite taken the film off yet, but I did use my palette knife to kind of blend some of the colors out. This was silly because you could still see some of the film had broken up and it was in the actual paint, but that's fine. I watered this down and I used it just to start sketching out the overall shape of the piece. I'm going to be drawing some flowers today because these felt like very floral colors. So I'm starting out by just blocking everything in. And so I'm going to give you guys some tips as well for oil paint as we go. If you don't know, I did oil paint through most of my thesis in college. So I actually am pretty comfortable with oil paint. Not necessarily oil paint sticks. Oil paint sticks are weird, but oil paint in general, I'm pretty comfortable with. And one of the things that I see a lot of beginners do, and I personally think it's a mistake, is they make very, very detailed drawings before they go in. And I think that's just going to frustrate you because oil paint is a very opaque medium and you are going to lose that sketch underneath very, very quickly, especially if you're working the whole piece like you should, or at least like I think you should, working around the whole piece at once. So I recommend just doing a very, very loose sketch that really just establishes the overall proportions and where everything's going to be. And then you can slowly sketch and refine with the actual paint. You're just going to get frustrated as you lose your other sketch, and it's going to be hard for you to keep those details, especially if you're trying these things. So at this point, I had decided it was very important that I peel off the film fully. For a while, I kind of tried to see if I could just scrape the film off because let's talk about this whole film thing. So it says they're supposed to be self-sealing and you're supposed to just peel off the film before using it. But this sounds a lot easier than it actually is. The film kind of breaks up into a bunch of different pieces. It doesn't all stay together. It's not like you poke an edge or like peel an edge and then the whole thing comes off in one piece. As you can see, it kind of comes off in a bunch of different pieces, and I ended up using my palette knife to more scrape off the film than anything else. It did peel, but not super, super well. And so the issues that I encountered because of this were, well, one of the most annoying issues was the little film pieces got everywhere. Like they got everywhere. They would drop on the painting and they would get stuck in the paint. They would mix in with the paint, even if I tried to get rid of all of the film. And after I was done and I was cleaning, there were little pieces of this film everywhere, all over the floor, on the desk, and I'm like, I don't want a little like piece of oil paint around because like that could smudge and destroy some of my stuff. So I don't know, it seems like a good idea, but in actual practicality, I don't know that it's actually that useful or that it helps you any. I would almost prefer like a cap or something like that. But that was one of the issues that I had. Probably one of the biggest issues I had was that, that film was really annoying to work with. So in terms of the actual performance of the sticks, I have mixed opinions. So once you take off the film, if you like apply them directly to canvas, they're actually really cool to work with. They apply a decent amount of color and pigment to the actual canvas when you apply it, when it's not too wet. And when it is wet, you can see it kind of pushes the other pigment aside. So you actually can layer it pretty well while it's wet. And I will talk about layering oil paints when they're wet in just 1 second. However, I did find that it was really, really hard to build on top as much because all it would do was move the paint underneath. So the thicker that paint got, the harder it was, and things would just kind of smudge. So if I wanted to make the paint a little bit more liquid so that it could lay on top, make more of a thick kind of paste consistency, that was really difficult. I could not make like a paste paint consistency. I tried cutting off the end of the stick with my palette knife and mixing it with other colors, mixing it with Goblin. Mixing it with other colors worked pretty well as I could tint those colors. Mixing it with the Goblin, it was just so hard to get anything that wasn't really, really thin. I just really had a bit of a hard time getting any kind of consistency that wasn't just like watery when I mixed it with other stuff. They worked pretty great, like I said, going straight onto the canvas, but mixing them was a lot more tricky than it said. Yes, they do mix, but the issue was trying to get rid of all these little film pieces. It didn't fully mix or blend out. And as you can see, it was harder for me to get anything beyond like a more thin consistency. And since I paint pretty thick when I paint in oils, that made it a little hard. One of the reasons that I paint thickly when painting oils is, here's my little tip for you. The other thing that I've heard people really struggle with is the drying time with oils. So I could see that these paint sticks might appeal to a lot of people because they are supposed to dry in 24 hours. And I did do this piece on 2 different days so I could test out the 24-hour drying time claim. So we'll get to that. Now, Oil paints take a long time to dry, sometimes days, sometimes for a thick piece, even months. They take a really long time to dry, which is what I love about them. And it is a huge appeal to so many people. But a lot of people have a really difficult time layering oil paints because when you put the next layer on top, a lot of times it will disturb the layer underneath. It will blend with the layer underneath, and that can be really frustrating for a lot of people. So there's quite a few ways that you can deal with this. Obviously, you can work your painting in lots of thin layers. You can wait for it to dry, and then you can move in with the next layer, which requires a lot more patience than I personally have. I am more of a thick painter, and when you paint with a little bit more thickness, you can actually build up on top. So what I would recommend doing is I would recommend having the thinnest paint at the bottom and the thickest paint on the top. That's going to mean that you can build up on top of it a lot more easily. Also, when you're laying down the paint, you want to consider your brush stroke and how much paint is on your brush. So you want a decent amount of paint on your brush, and you want to sort of lay it down on top of the already wet paint. And I don't know if that makes sense, but you're sort of like smearing it on top of the paint. And for any of the nail polish enthusiasts out there, think about when you are putting top coat on nail polish, you kind of have this bubble of top coat, and you can kind of brush the brush along so the brush doesn't actually touch the nail polish underneath the top coat. It just touches the top coat. You're kind of dragging that bubble over the top of the wet paint. Does that make sense if you're using like a quick dry top coat? I don't know. Tell me if that reference made sense down in the comments, or if you have no idea what I'm talking about. But that's what I mean in terms of laying paint on top. And let me know if you would be interested in a video about oil painting just with regular paints and any tips that I might have, or even like a walkthrough of some basic oil painting techniques that I use. I don't know if they're like the correct way or whatever, but it's just how I learned and how I paint. So if you'd be interested in learning how I personally paint in oil paints, let me know down in the comments below, and I will make that video for you guys. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the drying time, like I mentioned. So as you can see, I did put in quite a bit of that burnt umber and quite a bit of white because I really needed to add that contrast to the piece. And once I had put in a decent amount of these colors, things were getting to the point where I couldn't build up anymore because, you know, that will happen. Like I said, you can build up over wet paint, but sometimes you do need to at least step back for a day or so that the paint can get a bit of a film on top, get a bit drier. It doesn't have to be fully dry before you go in with your next paints, but that way you should be able to lay things on top a little bit easier without disturbing the paint underneath once it gets a little bit tacky to the touch. So what I decided to do was I waited overnight to see how these would dry. So I waited just under 24 hours, I would say. And I was able to, there was a noticeable difference between the parts that had a lot more of the actual oil paint in, like paint from a tube, and the parts that were done primarily with the stick. The parts that were done primarily with the stick were almost completely, if not completely dry. So that 100%, they do dry in 24 hours. You can definitely paint over the top of them. I could paint over the top of the browns. However, they blended in a lot more. So this is it the next day. You can see right now, I can put that white on top with a lot more definition and brightness because the paint underneath is a lot drier. So yeah, they definitely do dry a lot faster than oil paints. So that's a huge benefit from them. Oh man, these were really weird. I don't know what to, like, I don't know what I think about them. I think I've kind of gone through, oh, I tell you what, there's one more claim they made on the back, the buttery consistency. Lies. I don't think the consistency is that buttery at all. Even once you take off the film, they're pigmented and they're smooth, but I wouldn't call them buttery. I imagine them being a lot more creamy than they actually are. I didn't try using them on like any surface because it says you can use them on like wood, plastic, metal, and fabric, but they worked fine on canvas. So did I like these sticks? Did I think they lived up to everything that they claimed or everything that I expected? I don't know. I don't think I'll use them again. I don't. They're cool, and I think it's a really cool concept to have these oil paint sticks that you can just carry wherever you go. They'd be a lot lighter than tube paints, great for travel if you have to worry about liquid requirements, but they just didn't blend the way that I wanted them to. I was just showing you guys my palette, which is just like a paper palette, and the reason for that was because that yellow paint had a bunch of film in it and chunky stuff. And I didn't find the film was any easier to peel off the next day either. It did form that film, but I didn't think it was, like I said, any easier to peel off than the first time. So, I just don't know. If I'm not traveling and I don't have to worry about liquids, I don't know why I would use these at home. I could see them being really, really useful for that initial sketch that I was talking about and really loosely blocking things in. I could definitely see myself using them for that. But in terms of using them for a whole piece, I just don't know that they're practical. It's very difficult, I feel like, to get a thicker color, and that's hard for me because I do paint more thickly. Maybe if you paint in a lot of thin layers, this would be something that you would really like. I'm not sure, but I still feel like if you paint in a lot of thin layers, there's that issue of chunkiness because you're getting little pieces of the skin, little pieces that won't blend out, and they're still in that very thin paint, and they're going to sit on top of your thing, and you're gonna have to like take them out, and it's a whole thing. The film part really bothered me. It didn't work the way that I wanted it to work, and that was really frustrating to me. So, but it was really cool to try them, and I think it's a really, really cool concept. So if any of you have used these, let me know down below. I would love to hear what you think of them. I enjoyed trying these out. I had a really, really fun time. I miss oil painting, so I think I might have to go back to some oil painting. If you'd like to see more oil painting videos on this channel, let me know down below in the comments. If you liked this video and you found it helpful and you'd like to give it a thumbs up, then that would be so, so wonderful. And if you liked this video enough that you want to see more of my videos, that's great. Subscribe, come join the Wonderland fam today. We would love to have you. I upload new videos every Tuesday and Friday. I think this little flower piece came out really cute. I like how like expressive and explosive it is and how loose it is. And even though I didn't love these oil sticks, I do really like what I made with them, and I do really love the colors they came in. And like I said, have you tried these? I would be really interested to know. And if you did try them, what techniques do you have for me that could work really well? Because I will try them again if someone has some good techniques down below. So that is it for this video. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video and for supporting my channel. Make sure you click the link down in the description box for your free 2 months to Skillshare. And thank you all so much for watching. And as always, have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.